And the journey for me continued to unfold through the pandemic. As a little child, I remember Anglo-Saxon adults just coming up to me and coming down to eye height level and putting their hands around my face and saying, "My child, your people, you've lost your country," and having absolutely no idea what that meant. And then in January of last year, I heard a story by a South Vietnamese general who was aboard one of these ships, along with well over 10,000 other people who were fleeing amidst the communist southbound sweep of Vietnam. And he tells his story where he's on this ship, and as the ship is out at sea, moving southbound in the ocean, April 30 happened, and across the loudspeakers of the boat, it was announced that the South Vietnamese government had declared surrender to the communists. And this particular naval vessel was a South Vietnamese naval vessel. And everyone fell silent. It was over. This naval vessel continued, and it was decided that everyone would be taken to Guam to be reprocessed and resettled. However, en route to Guam, the boat needed to stop to restock and refuel. And what that meant was stopping in the Philippines. And what that meant was that we were now going to enter international waters. And according to international maritime law, you have to fly the flag that is the flag that represents the nation that this boat is embarking into international waters under. And because South Vietnam no longer existed as a nation, they needed to take down the South Vietnamese flag and replace that flag with the US flag. And as this was happening, the ship broke into the singing of the South Vietnamese national anthem as their flag was being lowered as an act of collective grief and mourning for a sovereign nation that no longer exists. You lost a war. We lost our country. Can you imagine seeing the flag of the nation that you now call home being lowered because your nation no longer exists? And so in the sharing of this story, I then learned what it means. Just a little bit, in a monumental way, what it means to lose one's country. And I vowed in that moment to learn the South Vietnamese national anthem that I'd never heard my entire life. And the reason I'd never heard it my entire life is because refuge seekers who had had connections with the US military, with the South Vietnamese military, were accepted into the United States. And so I grew up in a diaspora community that's actually very different to the US diaspora Vietnamese community, just like the French Vietnamese community is very different due to the intake and refugee reprocessing requirements of each nation. So I started learning the national anthem for a country that no longer exists so that I could sing it to my parents. And the next week, my dad calls me and I take a big, deep breath in and I say, "Hey, Dad, do you know the flag song of Vietnam, of South Vietnam?" And he looks at me with this look of, "Oh my God, my little girl's Vietnamese after all." I'm 45 at this point in time. And he starts singing a few lines and he can't remember all of them. And he says, "My child, help me." And I had the words right in front of me because I'm learning the lyrics. And I say to him, "Này công dân ơi, đừng lên đáp lời sông núi." He sings the next line. "Đồng lòng cùng đi, hy sinh đích gì than sông." Này, they go. So we're going back and forth. And it was my first ever duet with my dad. And if this is the only duet I ever get to sing with you, Dad, it's more than enough. I still don't know the entire Vietnamese national anthem. I don't care. It's a process. And the process for me is that it still makes me cry. And I'm okay with that. I'm going to stop the screen share and orient to us as a group.